So back in 2009, Disney made one of their greatest investments in the history of the company by acquiring Marvel Entertainment for $4 billion, right? And since that purchase, Marvel Entertainment has helped Disney make over $29.5 billion at the box office. That's just the box office. That figure does not include merchandising deals or sales from toys and a host of other products and clothing, apparel, etc. And if you're a nerd like me and you're tied and glued to the Marvel universe, then you know that the Marvel movies didn't really take off until 2008 with the first Iron Man film that started the widely popular Avengers run at the box office, which in turn spawned other highly successful films and TV shows centered around that same universe. But prior to the success of Iron Man in 2008, Marvel had already seen success in the live action department with several other films that made a lot of noise in their heyday. And one of those franchises that were very, very successful was the Blade series, starring the man that will go on to tell the government that they could eat a bag of dicks and beat it because he was fleeing the country and avoiding paying taxes. That man being Wesley Snipes. Side note, probably never a good idea to not pay the government taxes and then flee the country. But anyway, nonetheless, Wesley Snipes took a comic book character and gave us all a very, very good live action adaptation of the comic book version. And he turned a project that wasn't given much of a budget into a 3-part cash cow. How much of a budget? The budget for the first ever Blade movie was only $45 million, and that may sound like a lot of money to some of you, right? But to put that figure into context comparatively to other Marvel film budgets, the budget for Captain Marvel was $152 million, literally more than 3 times that of the first Blade movie's budget. Literally 3 times that figure. Now, to be fair, that budget did come on the heels of the mega success of several Marvel films that had already made the company billions of dollars. So I'm well aware of the time differences and the impact of that as it relates to budgeting, right? But considering the success of the first Blade movie, with the film grossing over $131 million off of a $45 million budget, you would have thought that Blade 2's budget would be considerably more hefty. Yet the budget for Part 2 was only about $10 million more than the first one at $54 to $55 million. And Blade 2 was an even bigger success than the first one, making over $155 million. Blade 3, which was the absolute worst one in the franchise by far, and was still a lucrative film, grossing $132 million at the box office off of a $65 million budget. The success of all 3 of these films were because of the great casting, perfect lead star, script writing, and accurate live action adaptation when compared to the comic book version. This is why it was a highly respected franchise. Both fans and people who may not have even been familiar with the character were able to enjoy these films because at the end of the day, the product was put before any agenda. Now you fast forward to today. Disney has been fumbling over themselves trying to capture the magic of the original Avengers movies ever since they ended their storyline in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's reportedly gotten so bad that they're contemplating bringing back the original cast members of the Avengers to hopefully breathe some type of life back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because let's face it, after the conclusion to Endgame, a lot of the people that were attached to this thing stopped caring about what would happen next, including avid comic book fans. You had to be really, really tapped in to care about what was happening next. And what we're left with is a company with ownership rights to a product that was once a golden goose laying golden nugget after nugget. That it appears like, well, now, what are you doing? It appears like you have no idea what's next. And making matters worse is the fall off of Disney stock. The writers' strike that impeded production and the various issues that they're having trying to cater to an audience that only cares about inclusion, women empowerment, and showcasing the LGBTQ community whenever they can. More and more, they're holding the middle finger up to say fuck you to the millions of fans that have supported them and made these movies what they are today. Stuffing these agendas into every available space that they can find. They started with the egregiously bad She-Hulk. Actually, no, this started with Endgame, with that one scene. We all know the scene. It's very cringeworthy. We had all the women show up on screen and stand together, unified. Cringy as fuck. But then they continued with She-Hulk, a series that basically showcased men bad, women good, for 9 goddamn episodes. And ever since, they've been parlaying that shit into every new movie, to the point where it's beginning to grossly affect the product and brand, and now you have leading stars threatening to walk off the movie set and abandon projects entirely because it's all becoming just too much. Too much agenda, too much inclusion, too much alphabet community bullshit, and too much pandering to an audience of women and the narrative of inclusion. An audience, by the way, that historically hasn't even supported you. Historically, they haven't given a single shit about comic books. This is facts. This is data. Historically, boys and men have supported the comic book industry and the idea of superpowered heroes. And it used to be the one sacred thing that we had as a species to cling on to without having to worry about the feelings of women getting involved. But we're off the rails now. And Disney has seemingly forgotten the core audience and supporters that made them nearly $30 billion at the fucking box office. The new star of Blade, Mahershala Ali, who is one hell of an actor, Academy Award winner, Oscar nominee. I don't need to prove that he's a great actor. It's already there. Proof is in the pudding. He has reportedly recently threatened to exit the film. Why? Because it's rumored that there was a plan to make Blade, the goddamn lead character, the 4th lead in his own film. What are we doing? That can't be serious. If it wasn't Disney, I wouldn't believe it. But this comes from a very, 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 very reliable source that said that the script for this movie began to morph into a narrative led by women and filled with life lessons. That's what the script began to morph into. What the fuck is that? You do know Blade is one of the darkest characters in the Marvel universe. He's a fucking day-walking vampire, for God's sake. What life lessons were there going to be in store for the watcher? For the viewer? I'm sorry, are you writing a Blade movie or a Dora the Explorer episode? In what universe would it ever be a smart idea to reboot a series and in the first return film, the goddamn character that the film is supposed to be based on is relegated to the 4th lead? Well, now I want to know who the other 3 leads were. Now I want to know who the other 3 leads were going to be. And to top it all off, despite the success and mountain of money that Disney is sitting on, It's said that they originally only planned to reboot the Blade movie with a budget of less than $100 million. How's that for a vote of support? I wish that someone, anyone, would let their balls hang over there at that company and say, listen, fuck all of this pandering, back to the fundamentals. But no, we're just going to get more of the same. It's rumored that one episode of the She-Hulk series cost $25 million to make. And with a run of 9 episodes, that would bring the grand total to create that one horrid season of She-Hulk somewhere into the realm of $225 million for something that was a critically acclaimed failure. The only reason anybody watched that bullshit was because they thought that there would be some kind of redemption arc for the egregious way that they shit-canned the Hulk character in the cinematic universe. But no. Instead, he was just used to gaslight the audience in the first episode with hopes of him making a reoccurring appearance later on in the series. And instead of using an opportunity to redeem that character, we watched him go to fucking therapy. And that was his arc. And now, we've arrived in the now. And what's happening now is exactly what we all feared, the true fans. The true fans of the series. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is in shambles. It's in chaos. And instead of building on the lore and foundation of the characters we've all grown to love, we get a movie with a bunch of whiny bitches flying around the screen shouting, "Down with the patriarchy." Nobody asked for this shit. Aside from the ridiculous way Monica Rambeau gets her powers, we've also been force-fed the storyline about Miss Marvel having gay parents, some shit that nobody gives a fuck about. What is happening? Where are the men that will look these pathetic groups of whiny-ass losers in the face and say, we don't care about your feelings. We're here to make art through adaptation of film with cool-ass characters and men that are showcasing their bravado, egos, power, and beating each other's asses while looking very cool doing it, because that has been what comic books have been about for the past 40 years. At some point, we gotta realize as a fan base that these movies aren't expressing imagination and art anymore. It's just propaganda. These idiots have allowed feminism to completely choke the life out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and in order to send a clear message through to the powers that be, we're gonna have to affect their pockets and vote with our dollars. Thanks for watching.